The phrasing of the word "not up to scratch" is an idiom that comes from the world of boxing in the old days, when boxing was fought under the London prize fighting rules, drafted by Jack Broughton. A line was drawn in the center of the ring. The line was called a scratch. If a contestant had been knocked down, he had to demonstrate that he was in control of his faculties by walking to the line, the scratch, within 38 seconds. If the boxer was unable to come up to the scratch within the allotted time, then he was considered unfit to continue the fight. The fight was awarded to his opponent. And this is where the term is derived from.
The boxing voice and Wilder. The boxing voice was going off. They were going off on Wilder. If I'm going to be honest, they kind of created the monster. I mean, I once saw the boxing voice going at it with Eddie Hearn, just telling him to blindly accept the 50 million offer when there was no sit-down meeting or contract or anything given. And the boxing voice was talking like they promoted fights for years, contradicting Eddie's experience. It was crazy. And that's how much sycophant they have been for Deontay Wilder, if I'm being honest. A lot of the controversial stuff that Wilder has says, he said it on their channel. And now all of a sudden, they're surprised that he censored them when Chris, the clout chaser Colbert, goes off. I read some comments on social media. Some people are saying that the boxing voice are going off because Wilder will no longer give them interviews. And maybe that's why they allowed Chris Colbert to get off like that. Whereas previously, they may have censored that interview themselves and not let it come out. So I'm going to let the narrative play out a little before I jump on the bandwagon and say, yeah, the boxing voice have seen the light and now they're playing it down the middle. I'm going to wait a little. And I don't underestimate how far in America they will go to hype up an event. And all this could be just not only hype for Chris Colbert, but also a way to draw more attention to Wilder and Fury 3. I'm just very suspicious of everything over there. I'll be honest. They've turned me into a big skeptic, suspicious, cynical skeptic. If Wilder pulled rank and had the video taken down, I'm not shocked by that at all. The Howard Scornier's fight has gone missing. The fight where his brother got knocked out, that's gone missing. Paulie Malignaggi, he believes that Wilder got him fired. Lou DiBella, he had to hit the road after the DAZN deal fell through. Mark Breland, maybe if he didn't have so many people enabling a lot of his behavior, he wouldn't feel like he could throw his weight about like that. I have to ask though, are we on the route to where we've just got yes men journalism in boxing, where you can't speak your mind, where your opinion will deem you as a hater? Is this where we're going? Where you won't be able to speak to Wilder unless you're a sycophant. Just the other month we saw IFL taking videos down when some boxing personalities were commenting on Canelo versus Saunders, saying Saunders quit. They took videos down. And then they had boxing personalities making videos trying to control the narrative, saying Billy didn't quit. Ben Davison was on there stumbling over his words and contradicting Mark Tibbs's testimony. Mark Tibbs was all over the place because it looks like, he gave a genuine reaction, unscripted after the fight, saying Billy didn't give him the response he wanted and he had to stop the fight. Inadvertently, he was saying Billy quit. But MTK, who sponsor IFL, they weren't having it. And IFL, they went along with it. I've been saying for a little while, I don't look out or search for boxers I want to interview no more. I don't. I'm not trying to align myself with too much people who cover boxing because they may expect me to follow some type of protocol which I'm not willing to. If you want my opinion on Wilder being oversensitive, I'll just say what's new. The question is how far do you go to let fighters dictate the doping policy of their fights? In 2013, when Povetkin fought Klitschko in Russia, they couldn't decide on what agency to use. Klitschko wanted to use NADA, based in Germany, where he's based, and Povetkin wanted to use RUSADA, where he's based. Klitschko threatened to pull out. They both got their own way. and were tested by separate agencies. Now, since then, Rosada has been found to be very controversial. Let's just say that and leave it there. But that's who Povetkin felt comfortable with. Now, you can say in hindsight, with all of Rosada and Povetkin's indiscretions, that, yeah, they should have went with Klitschko and they should have went with the German agency. Yes, you can say that. But until a man is guilty, you can't hang him. As far as I am concerned. Yeah, let's go with the Germans. But they use two different agencies. They've got the BDB and NADA. Which one is the better? If you're a boxer, a media person, a promoter or manager, a state commission representative, you can lobby to change the rules in boxing and say the protocols on doping is not effective and we need to put this and that and this and that in place. You can lobby, but while the rules are active as they are, what right does Nonito Donaire have to impose his Reichstag, look at me, I'm getting tested every day, on fighters who signed up to the clean boxing program, which is what the WBC require from Casemiro. It says here, from Jose Sulaiman, John Real Casemiro will fight our proud champion at Filipino Flash, Nonito Donaire. Casemiro enrolled in the WBC clean boxing program in May 2017 and has updated his whereabouts with at VADA testing, which is what Donaire is demanding. So he's fulfilled all his obligations and even more by agreeing to VADA testing, which Donaire is going to pay for. Sulaiman goes on to say it will be a great fight and we will not tolerate any foul language of any form. Now obviously they're talking about Casemiro and his team and his language in concerns with Rachel, Donaire's wife and manager, who cancelled the fight online. I've heard they made some memes and they told her she needs to stay in the kitchen. And look, you can call it sexism and I'm not going to argue. But any boxer from any location in the world, if you let your wife cancel the fight in a male-dominated sport like boxing, everybody's talking about Sean Gibbons. People are talking how Manny Pacquiao didn't go through VADA testing for the Thurman fight under Sean Gibbons' instruction, we have to say. Thurman and Pacquiao were tested by the Nevada State Athletic Commission. And now we've got this situation with Casemiro. He's managed by Sean Gibbons. And apparently Casemiro is working with Memo Heredia, Juan Manuel Marquez's strength and conditioner. Memo was also involved in that Balco scandal with Victor Conte. Then you can also go to Alex Ariza, who used to do strength and conditioning for Manny. So there's a few red flags going up now. People are saying, well, look at that, look at this, and look at this. Well, it's not as simple as that. Like I said, when Floyd pulled rank on Pacquiao about using USADA testing and Pacquiao said he was scared of needles, a lot of anti-Mayweather sentiment was saying they're letting him get away with X, Y, and Z. Well, since Donaire is such a big advocate of VADA, couldn't you point the finger with the same allegations there? How do you know he's paying for it all out of his pocket? I mean, he's been their biggest poster boy. From what I know in the world, there ain't no free lunches. And I'm not making no accusations, but if you're going to point the fingers over there and there and there, while Saint Donaire is the bastion of keeping the sport clean, well, maybe he is, but I want to go through it very thoroughly. Personally. That's just me. To me, right now, it looks like Donaire was looking for a way out the fight, and he found it. VADA came up very quick in the game. Very quick. From when maybe late 2013, 2014, 15, and 16, they started popping athletes. Like, every week they were popping somebody. And their popularity rose very quickly. But I said then, and I'm going to say it now, them having a monopoly on doping protocol and not being challenged could lead to corruption within the organization. It's not like there's a uniform protocol throughout the doping agencies. When Billy Joe Saunders got busted with the nasals, it was deemed to be in competition by UCAD and out of competition by VADA. Now, how UCAD got involved when whatever commission in either Boston, Massachusetts were handling the doping with VADA, I don't know. All I know is that the thinking wasn't joined up. When Dillian post-fight reverse had the adverse finding. Not a substance, an adverse finding. He was cleared by VADA straight away, but not by UCAD straight away. Eventually, UCAD cleared him. When Roy Jones fought Richard Hall in Indiana, he tested positive for anabolic steroids. Him and Richard Hall tested positive for anabolic steroids. Jones insisted that this was the result of using the supplement Ripped Fuel. No penalties or suspensions were issued because Indiana, like many states, had no legal authority to test for steroids. So Jones kept his IBF belt. These are the good old days before the super doping agencies cleaning up the sport because they would never be corrupt. So I'm just pointing out the inconsistencies regardless. Like Lamont Peterson, after the controversial 12-round decision taking Khan's belts, it was revealed that he had taken testosterone pellets, had them implanted in him shortly before the Khan fight in 2011. The WBA stripped him of his belt and reinstated Khan as champion, but the IBF let him keep the belt, like they let Roy Jones keep the belt. Golden Boy tried to get the result changed to a no contest, but he still remains a victory on Lamont Peterson's boxing record. Now, I don't think there's ever going to be a time where the sanctioning bodies join up the thinking and just allow undisputed fights to happen. I don't think that's going to happen. But doping protocol is a little different because people's lives are at stake. Let's keep it real. And there should be a concerted effort for there to be not one agency controlling all doping protocol, but there should be a joined up line of thinking. If I get busted for testosterone in Paris, the penalty should be the same for me if I get popped in London, New York, Lagos, St. Petersburg, wherever. It shouldn't matter. And if Nonito Donaire, as a WBC champion, doesn't respect the rules that were there before he beat Ubali, right? That you sign up to the clean boxing program and that's all you're required to do. If he doesn't respect that, why should he, a boxer, not a member of a sanctioning body, not a member of the State Athletic Commission, why should he, a boxer, get to impose what Casemiro should do to prove he's clean? Now, if Donaire wants to pay money out of his own pocket and prove he's the cleanest boxer ever, he should do so. But Casemiro hasn't broken no rules here. He's never been popped for a substance before anyone starts hanging him, and I'll leave it there. The people you should be attacking is the WBC, making you believe that you sign up to the clean boxing program and that you're being thoroughly tested when you're not. But that's not Casemiro's fault. And whether you like it or not, this is the system that Donaire has signed up to. He signed up for this. He knew this was the protocol. Ric Glaser, the fact there's been nothing from Leonard Ellerby, Floyd or Showtime, you realise the Tank Davis pay-per-view tanked. The number that Rick received is so bad, he's holding off until he has the streaming buy number. Sounds like illegal. Team Stream was in full force and effect. Well, maybe they might have to include the illegal streamers to boost up Tank's viewing figures. We haven't got the official numbers in, but it sure hasn't done as good as Leonard Ellerby said it was going to do. You're challenging me in the comment section, talking about how big Tank versus Ryan would be, because Ryan's got a lot of Instagram and Twitter followers, and Tank's probably got the same, and Leonard's just hyping him up constantly, and Floyd's hyping him up. I wonder how much of them Instagram and Twitter followers can afford to buy pay-per-view. Most of them are probably using the cable in their mum's house, in their mum and dad's house. I have no doubt that Ryan versus Tank would be a big fight. I mean, they've been hyped up enough by Golden Boy and TMT. But I'm telling you now, Tank versus Josh Taylor will be just as big or perhaps bigger if they have the will and motivation to promote that fight. But they've got to believe that Tank can win. You might be dazzled by Twitter followers and Instagram followers and talking a lot on Twitter. You might think that counts. And maybe one day it will, but right now, it don't mean nothing. You see, they can promote anything if they have the motivation and incentive. And that includes Josh Taylor. Now, take what Floyd said with a pinch of salt about in-house fights. If they knew it could do 2 million pay-per-views like what Mike Tyson did recently, they'd do the cross-promotion and make the fight. But they can't get nowhere near that. This is the fight you're saying is some big fight. It's a big fight. It's not a big fight. It's not. If the math is correct, the fight will be made. Did Floyd not fight on HBO and Showtime against Pacquiao? Because the math added up. You see, the naive and brainwashed don't understand that the biggest fight is not by consensus of boxing fans. Like with Crawford and Spence, we went back and forth for how long? We've been going back and forth asking for that fight. And then Richard Schaefer told us that we don't actually want to see that fight. We want to see Mikey Garcia and Spence. That's the biggest fight. But the truth is, that's not the biggest world welterweight title fight. That's not the biggest. That's the biggest PBC welterweight title fight. There's a difference. The biggest world welterweight title fight is Spence and Crawford. Now, if they were to do a cross promotion with Spence and Crawford, would it turn over a profit? There's a good chance it would. I don't know the maths exactly, but you could call it greed. But the risk reward from both parties, more than likely, is what's preventing that from happening. But regardless, that's the biggest world welterweight title fight out there. That's the biggest. Because neither side can keep it in-house. They're not taking the chance. You see, neither Golden Boy or TMT have any intentions of making Ryan versus Tank. But they dangle it in front of your face as a marketing tool for both of them to say, yeah, I'm going to knock out Tank. Yeah, I'm going to knock out Ryan. Why doesn't it always go to Ryan? Why? Because if he calls out Josh, Loma, Devin, Tio, there's going to be an expectation for the fight to be made, risk reward or not. All you're doing is repeating what Leonard Ellaby is telling you is the biggest fight. This is the trick of marketing and advertising. But if you live with mummy and you don't pay no bills and you don't do no critical study, you wouldn't know any different. You think you're in charge. A lot of consumers think they're in charge in the world of capitalism, but they don't realize a lot of their decisions and their purchases have been predetermined. You don't have limitless choices and options. You don't. You see, they had to find a way to demonize Josh Taylor, because them 4 belts, potentially, that's a big, big bag. They had to tear him down to try and sell the Barrios fight. See, Leonard Ellaby was trying to tell people they don't know the difference between Josh Taylor and some bum who's just floating around at 140, insulting the intelligence of the American boxing consumer. This was never true. This is what Tyson Fury tries to do to Anthony Joshua. The other day he says, I don't need to fight AJ for Undisputed. I've did that already, though he's never fought for Undisputed. What he's trying to say is AJ's 3 belts don't mean anything. I'm still better than him, even though he's never made a successful title defense as yet. Even though he's been a pro longer than AJ, and AJ makes more money than he does. Wilder did the same thing as well. My belt is the belt that matters, the green belt. AJ's 3 belts don't matter. But if they're trying to devalue AJ and say his accomplishments in his belt don't mean anything, why do they ask for 50-50? Why don't they ask for more? Because they know it's bullshit. This is all part of the leverage tactics because AJ's been so successful. You have no understanding. This is why I guess I can't stop doing videos. Because I'm one of the few channels that can break this down cohesively. Wilder admitted he would have got more for fighting Anthony Joshua for Undisputed than fighting Tyson Fury for 1 belt. Josh Taylor's problem is he signed with the wrong promoter. I guess he thought it was the easier path to get into 4 belts, but Bob Arum isn't a good promoter. He's a good opportunist. He's a decent businessman, but he's not a good promoter like that. He really isn't. And you know the promoter I'm thinking of that Josh should be signed to. You know what I'm thinking of. But judging by what Rick is saying, Ric Glaser, the fake it till you make it tactics hasn't paid off. If they can convince you that there's bigger fights out there for Tank, that's what they're going to do. And it works out beautifully when they know they're not going to make Ryan versus Tank. They can keep telling you that it's a bigger fight and avoid Josh Taylor because he doesn't sell. Although he did put 16,000 people in the O2 Arena for the World Boxing Super Series final against Regis Prograis. And his purses so far in his career have been bigger than Ryan Garcia's. They ain't told you that, have they? Probably earns bigger purses than Tank. There ain't much in it. I'm telling you that now. Just because there's a lot more hype surrounding Tank, he ain't earning that much more than Josh Taylor. I'm telling you that now. I'm guaranteeing you, somewhere in Britain, Tank could earn a career highest payday if he wants to fight the Edinburgh kid with the 4 belts. Easily. Easily. But this is what I was saying in the video. Everybody is brainwashed by Leonard Ellaby's suits and his spill. The fight's not big over here. Like, America's the only place you can make a world title fight. Josh can do numbers in London, Glasgow, Edinburgh. Tank will get a career highest payday. Easy. But he could also get knocked out. Unceremoniously. Ryan Tank's the biggest fight. No. They don't want to give you the biggest fight. Just like they didn't want to give you Spence and Crawford. They gave you their interpretation of the biggest fight, and that was Spence and Garcia, which is the biggest fight. Yeah, the biggest in-house fight on the PBC. But that's not bigger than the biggest cross-promotion fight against you-know-who. It's like with these leverage tactics. They're giving you their interpretation of what they think is the biggest fight at heavyweight, and that's Wilder versus Fury. But the Saudis ain't putting up no money for Fury and Wilder. They're not. They're putting it up for Undisputed against AJ. That's the biggest fight. But Fury and Wilder would tell you that Undisputed don't matter. Just like Leonard Ellaby would tell you that Undisputed don't matter with Josh Taylor. It's called fake it till you make it.